Hey, how's it going? Using the new screen recording software, so hopefully this works. Welcome to lesson 10, or actually exercise 10, in the 101 ebook of Pro Tools. This is a big one because we're going into something that is really a core fundamental reason why we use Pro Tools: automation. And that's what the exercise is going to focus on: automation and mixdown. So, you might say, what is automation? Well, right here, this is what it's all about. Up to now, you've been creating static mixes in which none of the controls move over time. So, we pushed a fader up for the vocals, we pushed a fader down for the violins, we pushed a fader in the middle for the guitars, for example. And as you play the whole song, those different volumes that we've set just stay where they are. But if we want to actually have each track change in volume over time, we need to do something called mix automation. What is mix automation? Mix automation refers to the ability to change aspects of your mix, such as volume, probably the most. You can change actually just about every aspect of your mix over time, but volume is what we're going to look at now. Over time, and to have those changes written to your session. Once those changes have been written, they can be adjusted and played back automatically, hence the term automation. So that's basically what it means. So, for example, let's go to the mix window here. Here is, as you can see, our faders are set to specific spots. So if we play back this in its static mix mode, these faders will stay where they are, and over time, these faders will not change. But maybe over time, I want the SFX, or sound effects, track to increase in volume and then decrease in volume as it's playing. We've all heard it. Anytime in a movie, when there's music in a scene, the music's really loud, and then it goes quiet so we can hear the dialogue, and the music's playing under the dialogue, and then when the folks are done talking, the music goes back up in volume. That's mix automation. What they did was they took the music and brought it down, and then maybe people talk for 30 seconds, and then when they're done talking, the music goes back up. So what we're going to do is, as we play our mix, as we play it, we are going to change the volume of different tracks over time, and then when we play it back, we will see these faders move by themselves over time based on the automation we have written. Super cool stuff. So let us go ahead and jump to what they are going to have us do. So as you can see, this is going to be a long exercise, 60 minutes. Whew. So set aside some time. Okay, getting started. First thing we want to do is, you guessed it, rename it with your initials. Just did that. Boom. All right. Good first step. So, automating by section. The session has been laid out to do something that's commonly referred to do as stem mixing. The only tracks you're seeing are the ones that are routed to the main output. We'll get into that later on. But what stems are is, at least in audio post terms, is when you're editing, you're going to have several dialogue tracks, one for each character. You're going to have several sound effects tracks, one for each sound effect: wind, gunshots, footsteps, that sort of a thing. You're going to have several ambiance tracks, like wind, city noise, things like that. Then you're going to basically make subgroups. You're going to make submixes. You're going to have the dialogue submix. So all of those dialogue tracks will feed into one dialogue submix track. You're going to take all of your sound effects, feed them all into one sound effects submix track. You're going to do that for each category. Those categories are your stems. So when somebody says, hey, can I see your sound effects stems? I want to make all of your sound effects louder by adjusting the volume of your sound effects stem. That's what we're talking about, very basically. Okay. To start out, you'll create rough automation for different sections of the song. So that you can see your automation lines, make sure you're looking at the edit window. The edit window is where you'll see the automation in action. Make sure that all of your tracks are in auto read mode. Make sure all your tracks are showing volume automation playlist. Make sure that you're in loop playback mode. Make sure you're in absolute grid edit mode with a grid value of 1 bar. A lot of stuff, but we're just setting up our session. That's all we're doing. So let's go into Pro Tools, edit window. Okay, as you can see, we want our main time format to be bars and beats. And we have a sub format. We like to see how long this thing is, minutes and seconds, that works. Now, what we want to do is make sure that each track is in auto read mode. What does that mean? Well, you might notice, you might have noticed this. Every track has the same buttons. Recorded, well, almost every track. Aux tracks have a little bit different, but like for example, we've got a record enable button. We've got the input monitor button. We've got solo, we've got mute, and then we have what's called the track view selector. When you click on this, by default, it's on waveform. We're looking at the waveforms. If we click on it, there are all these other options. Click on volume. Now, we still see the waveform, but now we actually see the volume line. This black line wasn't there before. As you can see, this track was set on waveform, but as you can see, these other tracks are set on volume. So let's switch this one track from waveform to volume. And what this does is, this lets us change the volume over time. So they don't tell you how to do this, but I'm going to show you real quick. Here's the pencil tool. Click on the pencil tool. On the sound effects track, with your pencil tool, hover over that black line, click, hold, and drag. Note the number that popped up right here. See that right there? That lets me know how low or how high I am raising or lowering the volume over time. So since I'm in volume mode, if I play this back, it's set. I don't think there's, oh, these are special effects. So let's see what happens. Ah, you see. Oh, that's cool. But what I've told it to do is it's going to change the volume of this track over time. Using your pencil tool to draw in the volume that you want at the different times of your composition or whatever you're working on, this is a really rough way to do automation. And what's cool about it is you can undo it. Thank goodness. So if you did what I just did, make sure you undo it so it's back to normal here and get out of the pencil tool, because that was just sort of to show off a little bit. Okay. So make sure you're in loop playback and absolute grid mode. So loop playback, that's when your play button has the little loop line around it. If you don't see that, go up to options, down to loop playback, and make sure it's checked. Grid mode, remember these are our edit modes: shuffle, slip, spot, and grid. So by default, grid is in absolute grid mode, but there is a relative grid mode. We'll deal with that later in the semester, but let's do absolute grid mode right now. And we want our grid to be set to 1 bar. So here's our grid. Turn it on or off so we can see our grid lines. And then we go over here to select the grid value. It's already set to 1 bar, so each one of these lines represents a bar in time. So 1 bar, 2 bars, 3 bars, 4 bars, that sort of a thing. Okay, so everything's good. Next, to make the workflow a little bit easier, we'll start off by placing a single automation breakpoint At each song ending, using the grabber tool, place a single automation breakpoint on each track except the main monitor track at the following locations. Okay, here we go. First of all, they talk about this in the chapter. Go up to Window, Automation. This is your automation sort of a control window. Basically, what this means is if this button that says suspend is clicked, you can see all of this stuff got grayed out. That means we are not allowed to do any automation. We have suspended the ability to do automation. When it's unchecked, then we can automate. But whatever is checked here, whatever's clicked in red, is the parameter that we can automate. So we can automate volume, we can automate panning, we can automate muting. We can automate sends. We talked about sends in chapter 9. So if you want your send effect to change over time, so if you've got reverb and you want your reverb effect to be really low in power and then increase in power and then lower in power again, you can automate the strength of effects over time. Super cool and pretty complex maybe to wrap your head around at this point, but if you get the concept of volume automation, which is changing the value of volume over time, think about it like this. Panning, I want to hear it go to the left. I want to hear it go to the right over time. Muting, I want it to mute and then come back and then mute and come back over time. Effects, I want the effects to increase and decrease in power over time. Super cool, and we hear it all the time. This is how soundtracks are made. Okay, so we just want to make sure this stuff is on. So using our grabber tool, what's cool with the grabber tool is, yes, when you're in waveform mode, you can grab stuff and move it around, undo. But when you're in volume mode, your grabber becomes a pointer. And that pointer lets you place keyframes. So automation, for those of you who take editing classes, is very similar to the idea of keyframing. You're setting a point of value at this point, and then a value at this point, and then it changes over time from point to point. That's what keyframing is, and that's basically what's happening when you're automating. So we want to place a single automation breakpoint on each track except the main monitor track at the following locations. 9, 31, 47. Oh my goodness, look at that. Okay, that's cool. Each track. So you can see there are lots of tracks here. Luckily, what they've done is we don't have to set automation points on every single one of these tracks. We've created stems. These are stems. These are all basically submixes of the different groups of tracks. So we only have to worry about automation on this in this exercise. Thank goodness, because that'd be a pain in the butt. So let's zoom in a little bit. So we want an automation breakpoint at 9:31:47. Okay, so here's 9. So you just click, and it just makes it 9, 9, 9, 9, 9, 9, 9, but not on the main monitor track. We could, but that's not what they want to do in this exercise, which is probably smart because that would probably be a little bonkers. 31 and 47. Okay, so let's do this. Let me zoom in a little more here so we can see the numbers better. Here's 31. See something here. Try something here. And as you can see, if you hold down Option, you can undo it. And the reason we're in grid mode is because that is forcing us to put keyframes on the grid lines. If I was in slip mode and I wasn't right on, in this case, the 31 bar, the 31st bar, it wouldn't place it there. But when I'm in grid mode, I am confident that these lines will be landing where I want them to land. Oop, and look, main monitor, we don't want that. So Option or Alt-click to get rid of it. What else was coming up? 47, 71, 87. Let's say so 41, as you've probably guessed from some of these exercises, editing is a tedious job. Oh, I did 41. Damn it. Okay, the cool thing is I did 41. We want 47. You can undo it. So if you make a mistake in automation, that's cool. You can you put it on the wrong point. Totally cool. You can undo it. And then 71. Oh my goodness. I gotta say, this guy, I really like Andy, the author's new exercises. They are really damn tedious, but it really drives home what goes into editing, a lot of tediousness and repetition, and B, at the same time, it shows off the power of what you can do and in these programs. But you can only really see that power if you go through this repetition, because we have to make sure everything is in its proper place before we could start playing with stuff. 115 and 137. So then we go to 115. Here's the number. And then 137. Oh my goodness. We did it. How cool is that? And you'll notice if you click and hold, if you put this dot here, click and hold and drag, look what happens. So the volume would be decreasing from this point to this point because this is a keyframe, this is a keyframe, and it's decreasing in volume from keyframe to keyframe. This is, like I said, what automation is. We don't want to do that just yet. Okay, so the introductory section of the song covers from the beginning of the session's timeline to 9. Select this area and make sure the selected area is also on each of the tracks. Begin playback. Using the trim tool, adjust the volume levels of the individual tracks to suit your musical tastes. Okay. All right, I guess we're going to do that. So let's zoom out. So he says up to bar 9, select this area, make sure the selected area is also on each of the tracks. Begin playback. Using the trim tool, adjust the volume levels of the individual tracks. Okay, so right here, let's zoom in a little bit. Choose our selector tool. Just click around that area. Zoom in. And put your cursor up here where your bar numbers are. Click, hold, I'm sorry. There we go. Click, hold, put your cursor right where mine is. Click, hold, and drag. Is it doing what I want it to do? Yeah, there we go. Go up to 9, click, hold, and drag all the way to the beginning. So when your cursor is hovering in the main time base, which is bars and beats in this case, and you click and hold and drag, it highlights everything it highlights all of the tracks in the area that you selected. So that's what they want to do. That's what we're going to do. Now check this out. Trim tool. Now let's listen to it. As you can see, we can see which tracks are giving us volume. The guitar track, the string track, the Vox track. Let's lower the guitar one using your trim tool. Note my trim tool, when it hovers over this line in volume mode, it's going to let me lower it. See that? So let's listen to what happens as we do that. See, I lowered the volume of the guitar sub and it brought down the guitars. So this is very rough automation. We've set our keyframes, like we want to change volume between here and here. We want to change volume between here, and so on and so on. So if I use my trim tool, that lets me adjust the volume for the areas between the breakpoints. Again, let's not do it for main monitor. We're not doing that yet. Ooh, I like that. Okay, so what I like about Andy's way of doing this is it's very much like do what sounds best to you. And this is a good way to sort of train you as a sound designer. Because instead of just going through the button motion, say click this button, click this button, click this button, you're actually, yes, doing that, but then listening to what you're doing and making a decision whether you think it sounds cool or not. So what he wants you to do now is, so we did it from the beginning to our first breakpoint, or our first breakpoint that we set, which is a bar 9. So let's go into selector mode. And now let's go from 9 to the next breakpoint that we made, which was 31. So what he wants us to do is go through section by section, breakpoint to breakpoint, and listen to what we like and use our trim tool to adjust accordingly. That's a little loud. Should also look at your main monitor mix by clicking this little button right here to make sure you're not clipping. Drums are a little loud there. I'm going to bring them down. All right, I'm basically peaking around -5. That's cool. Let's maybe stick with that goal right now. Now go from this point 31 to the next one. I'm sorry, 31 to 47, and do the same thing with your trim tool. How does it sound? Maybe these synths should come down a little bit. Those effects are way loud. And remember, you can always go back. And hear what you did. See? Maybe bring that back up a little bit. There we go. So split the difference, right? All right, now let's go to the next one. You're getting the idea. This is automation on a very, very basic level, like just getting to understand the idea of what automation does. Okay, let's see how the sound effects are. Ooh, I like where that is. I'm gonna leave that. How's everything else sounding? Maybe the bass should be a little louder. Yeah. Okay. Go on down the line. Now, obviously, I'm not a music mixer, and this is not really the best way to mix music, like changing the sounds of submixes just randomly throughout. But it gives you an idea of how to automate. So it's a good thing to do, even if it does seem like a kind of a wacky way to do it. I'm going to bring the special effects down just a touch for this part. Oh. And what's cool about that is this part, the strings, I think, have really started, strings of the synths have really taken hold. So maybe make the strings a little louder. Because this is a very climactic part of the song. Maybe the string should be a little louder. Again, my opinion. And make sure we're not clipping. Okay, we're getting close to clipping. So if you add one thing, you should probably subtract another thing. Maybe the synths a little bit. And maybe this, because this is a little loud. All right. So he just kind of wants us to go on and do the rest of it. Again, it's just to get you familiar with how this works. I think there's only these couple that are left here. So trim tool, bring this down a little bit. Select selector tool, select this bit, and I believe this will be the last one we work on. Even though there's another one, I think you guys get the idea by now. Look at your meters. Listen. Does something seem too loud or too quiet? Bring it up or bring it down. But look at your master fader meters to make sure that it's not hitting the red. At this stage, I'd like you guys to stay around -5 to -3 at the highest, which is where I'm at right now. Okay, let's see. What is next? When you're done, your session's mix will change as it plays. Now, each section will have its own static mix. So, let's look at what we did here. Let's go back to this first bit right here. Go ahead and put your selector at bar 7. It's anywhere, you can click on any track. Then go to the mix window and this is automation in action. Watch your faders change over time, no hands. See that? See how they moved? Let's do that again. See that? And it also changed, like certain things got louder, certain things got quieter. That's automation. We selected over time how we wanted the faders to move, and it remembers it. It is written. What we're doing is we're writing automation. We're writing volume changes to each track. Okay, now let's tweak it. Use edit tools to make smaller changes within sections. By this point, your mix is becoming more uniquely yours, so the directions here will need to be less specific. Listen to individual sections, making notes as to small parts. Using the pencil, trim, and grabber tools, make the appropriate adjustments to the individual sections of the song. Okay, so let's go back to the edit window. So let's just do... Let's follow my lead here. Again, he wants you to sort of make your own decisions. What I'm going to do, out of the interest of time, is I'm just going to focus on this one section, and I would suggest you follow along here. With the selector tool, select the section between bar 31 and bar 47. Let's listen to it. Okay, so we could take our pencil tool and again, we can write automations. So maybe I want her vocals to fade out and then fade up. So let's listen again. Okay, so she goes between 33 and about 34. So what I'm going to do is I am going to make another automation point using the grabber tool at 35. And I'll take the pencil tool And between 31 and 35, I will go down like this and then go up like this. And now when we play it, her voice faded out. And now the volume is back where it was originally, so her voice is there, blah, blah, blah. I could do the same for, let's say, the guitar sub. Maybe I'll have the guitar sub go down a little bit and just sort of stay right here, and then maybe go up a little bit. See, the guitar isn't, it's much lower in the mix, and now it's going to come back. Pretty cool, huh? So we did that using a pencil, and you'll notice, watch what happens. There's an automation point right here. If I just draw like this and let go, watch what happens. It connects from where I let go to the next point. So that's why it's always good to sort of make an automation point after, sort of like, almost kind of like making your next automation point first. Because if you do this and there's no automation point afterwards, then it'll just stay down. So if you wanted to, if you just want to change this a little bit, but have it pop back up to normal by the next point, make sure that next point is actually there, because then when you let go, it'll pop back up. Okay, so now let's see, using the pencil, trim, and grabber tools. Okay, we've done all that. Let us, now, let's see what else he's having us do here. Oh, wow, okay. Creating a fade out. So your main monitor track is a master fader that is controlling the total output of your mix. That means that's an easy place to create a fade out for your mix. So if I want the entire mix to fade out, I could either add a fade to, basically I could either just, oops, where is it? Yeah, I could either go to the end of every track and add fade out, fade out, fade out, fade out, fade out, fade out. Or I could just go to the master. Because, like I said, the master fader, the main monitor master fader, when you go like this, the whole thing goes down. That controls everything. So that is the best way to create a fade in and a fade out. Your song doesn't even have to start with a fade in or a fade out, because what I mean is, like, the raw tracks don't have to start off smoothly, because this will do it for you. Oops, sorry, hit the wrong button there. Okay, so using the grabber tool, create another breakpoint at 130, drag the automation point at 130 to the bottom of the track. Okay, so main monitor track. Let's go to the, let's see here. Let's go, oh, I see. Create a automation breakpoint at 123, and then another automation breakpoint at 130. Got it. I see what they're doing. Let's go to the edit window. Remember, these are our beats. So let's put our, let's just sort of put it around 129, and let's zoom in so we can see the numbers a little bit better. Okay, there we go. Main monitor, it's down here. So here is 123. So using the grabber tool, remember, we're still in volume mode, which will allow us to use the grabber tool to make automation breakpoints. So here we are, 123, right there. See that? So let us go down here, create a breakpoint there. And here's, let's see here, 130. Let's zoom in a little more. Here's 130 over here. Create another breakpoint there. Move this out of the way. Okay. So what we're going to do now is Let's see how they describe it. Still using the grabber tool, drag the automation point to the bottom of the track. Okay, so we've made an automation breakpoint here. We've made one here. Using the grabber tool, which we're still in, drag it down. And what we've done now is, because we're in volume mode, we're telling the volume of the main monitor mix, which is our main mix, which is everything, to be start at this point and to slowly fade out. So let's click on the selector tool, go back to about beat 118, go to the mix window. Oops, hit the wrong one. Go to the mix window and let's watch this guy fade out. See, I'm not doing that. It's doing it by itself. That is automation. We wrote the automation. Again, if you've done video editing, this is like keyframing. And as you can see, there's still stuff going on in those tracks, but because we've turned the monitor mix, the main monitor mix down on the master fader, everything is muted. So there's something he didn't talk about in here, which I could have sworn he would have talked about at this point. But let's see. I'm just going to scroll back in the chapter here. Huh. Interesting. Writing plugin automation. Okay. Here's another way to write an automation. And I don't think he really talks about it so much in this chapter, but I do talk about it in the tutorials this week. So that's a good thing to look on here. And again, this is not part of the exercise, I don't believe. Let's just scroll ahead. Oh, wrong way. I was hitting the wrong thing. Okay. Okay, great. So I'm going to show you guys one more thing. So let's go to follow my lead here. This is not part of the exercise, but it's important to understand what automation is from on a deeper level. We've done automation using the pencil tool, the trim tool, and the grabber tool. All ways to automate. You're looking at my screen right now. You see how it's done. But let's go ahead and let's see here. Let's not do that. I'm trying to find a track that is very obvious. Okay, let's do the synth stem. So see right here where it says read. Every track has something that says read, and it's called the automation mode selector. And it's got a little pop-up. So, oh, what does that mean? Well, let's click on it. Off, read, touch, latch, write. So I'm going to show you guys what off, read, and write are. Touch and latch we'll do in later chapters. So, and they talk about it in the book, if you want to read up on it, and you can play with it if you want, but right now I'm just going to show you off, write, and read. So by default, it's in read mode. When you write automation and you want to hear what you've done, it needs to be in read mode. It's kind of weird because you think it should say hear and not read, but whatever, that's just how it is. So if I want to hear what I did here, I need to make sure this is in read mode, and then as it's playing, it will read the automation and play it back for me as it's automated. So, and it's fading out, and I could hear that because it's in read mode. But if I ever want to go back and say, I want to see what it was like before I automated it, you can turn automation off. And what that does is that will keep what you've done, but it creates a sort of gray-blue line that was the volume the way it was originally, and it just ignores the automation. So let's play it back now. See, the vocals are there because even though I automated it, if you turn off automation, it'll keep the automation you made, but it'll just ignore it when it's playing back. And that'll let you sort of, it's a valuable thing because you might have written some automation and go, was it better originally? I don't know. And rather than deleting and starting over, you can just turn it off and hear how it sounded originally. So by default, it's on read because whenever you automate something, you want to hear it. So you put it on read mode and that will read the automation to let you hear your work. Then there's write mode. So what we've been doing is writing automation. This is writing automation. We are writing automation. Writing it with a pencil, and then we read it to hear what it sounds like. But we do that with the pencil. What if we want to do with the faders? Well, let's go down to the, actually, let's keep it on Vox. Let's keep it on the Vox. So on the Vox, let's go back to, let's go to beat 30. Let's go to beat 30. Put the Vox sub on right. And then open up your mix window. But do me a favor. Open up your mix window and make it smaller. Just go to the lower right corner of your mix window and make it and drag it. Look, see how I'm doing right now? I'm dragging it. Drag it so it's smaller. Because what I want you to do is, when you are in write mode, as you see right here, we're going to move this fader up and down. And what you'll see is this volume line will correspond to our fader movements. So we will actually see the writing in action. So again, selector tool, put it on beat 30. Put this in write mode. Go into the mix window and shrink your mix window by going to the lower right corner so you can see your mix window on top of your edit window because you want to see what you're about to do. And you'll notice here in our mix window where it says auto, each track is showing me which automation mode they're in. Vox sub, as you can see here, is in write mode. Right here, it's also showing me that it's in write mode. And all the other ones are in read mode. You can turn them all into write mode if you want, but let's just start with this one right now. So hit play, and as it's playing, move this fader on Vox sub up and down and watch what happens to the edit track. See, I'm moving the fader, and now I'm bringing it up, and I can hear it. Like, let's wait till she sings again. See how loud it is? Because the fader's way up. Now I'll bring it down, and see how quiet it is? Because I brought the fader down. I am mixing with faders, just the way people do in sound studios when they have a soundboard. See, as I'm going the fader up and down, it's writing the automation in the edit window. And watch what happens when I let go. When I let go, it leaves it at the level it was at. But because I'm in write mode, it's still writing. So until I hit stop, it will continue to write this volume automation. So maybe I like this part, but then maybe here I want to bring it up again. There we go. And then I can let that ride, and then you can bring it down. And then maybe I'll just fade it out. And then let it go. And then you just hit stop, and you'll see what happens when you hit stop. Because there is a breakpoint, there's another point of automation after that, it will jump up to that. We'll cover that in later lessons. But we just wrote automation using write mode. Now, let's play back what we just did. Let's put our selector back at number 30. Go to our mix window and watch our fader have some fun with what we just did. See that? That is written automation. The fader has been automated to control the volume the way I wanted it to be controlled. So what people do is they will, like for a soundtrack, they will write the automation for every person's dialogue. It's gotta be this loud, gotta be this loud, gotta be this loud. Maybe the crowd scenes should be in there, but it should be quieter because we don't want the crowd noise to be louder than the main dialogue. So you automate each track. So then for this one, I would go put this back in read mode, and then I would put this one in write mode, and then same thing. Get it to the levels that I like. That's a little goofy, but you get the idea. And the cool thing is automation is undoable. You hit undo, boom. And not only is it undoable, it's deletable. With your selector key, check this out. Maybe I think this part is great, but I don't like this part. With the selector tool, while I'm still in volume mode, I can select a section of automation that I don't like. See, I'm just drawing and dragging over it. And then watch what happens when I hit the delete key. It deletes the automation and then just goes from this breakpoint to whatever the next breakpoint was. And if maybe I don't like these breakpoints either, I could just go like this, hit the delete key. There we go. So when you're in volume mode, you're not deleting your clips. You're deleting the volume automation. So, and when you're in volume mode, you're not manipulating your clips. You're manipulating the volume automation. So if I go back to waveform mode, oops, sorry. Oh, actually, I'm in, this is an aux track. There are no waveforms. But let's go ahead and waveform this. Look, when I go back to waveform for this audio track, it just looks like a normal track. But if I want to see what's going on, there we go. And again, this is not in the lesson, but I wanted to show you it. And the last thing I'm going to show you that's not in the lesson is this. Every track has this little button right here. See this little button right there? It's called Show Hide Automation Lanes. It's in the lower left corner of every track. Watch what happens when I show hide automation lanes. Well, I'll do it for the Vox sub. Go up to Vox sub, hover over where my mouse is right here, show hide automation lanes, click on it and watch what happens. It opens up, it's like a sub-track. It opens up a sub-track that shows you your automation for that track. What a lot of people do is, and I'm one of those people, is I just keep my automation lanes open, and then I keep my, let's look at the automation lanes here. There we go. And then rather than having it in volume mode, I just keep it in waveform mode. And then, because I don't need to see this? It's the same as this. But if I keep this in waveform mode, then I've got a whole sub-track of that track that's showing the automation for that track. And I could do all the stuff I want to do here. See that? So anyway, that's a little advanced, but that's what this button is. Some people like to just keep their waveforms as waveforms and then have a separate sort of sub-track that shows the automation. And then that way, if I want to move something around, I can. Things like that. Okay, let's go back to the book. Little break there, but it's important to know, I think, the off, read, and write modes, what they are, and also knowing that those automation lanes are there as an alternative way to view your edit window. Okay, now we're going to export our mix. To end the exercise and this course, this is it, end of the 101 book, you'll export your mix in Red Book audio format. Wow, this guy is so technical. Okay, so first, you'll need to make a selection. Select from the beginning of the timeline until 131. Yeah, okay, this is huge. So let's zoom out. Just zoom out. We want to see, actually, we don't need to see that much. So based on what this guy is saying, this song is about 130 beats long. So he's saying you need to make a selection. Select from the beginning of the timeline until 130, until the 130 beat mark. This is huge. I said this in class, I'm going to say it again. When you bounce, when you export a bounce, when you bounce a mix, it's all the same thing. It will only bounce what you have selected. So the song goes to the 130 beat mark. But if I have a keyframe down here at the 200 mark, Pro Tools will think, oh, there's something going on down there. And it will just export all the way down there. So if this song is only supposed to be 130 beats long, but for some reason there's a keyframe down at the 200 beat mark, it's going to export down to the 200 beat mark because there's something that's going on down there. So if you don't have anything selected, Pro Tools will try and assume, well, I guess they want their entire edit window selected, and it looks like they're doing something way down here at the 200 beat mark, even though I'm really not. So on the same token, if I just have this selected right here, and then go up to File, Bounce Mix, Pro Tools will just bounce that little bit right there. That's it. So what I always tell people to do is go up to your timeline ruler, in this case it's bars and beats, with your selector, start at the beginning, and go all the way to the end of your soundtrack. So maybe your soundtrack ends, in this case, at the 130 mark. Great. It ends at that fade out. So look right here. As I move the selector, look at my start and ends. Oops, hold on a second. Let me zoom in a little more. There we go. You always make sure that the start is actually at the start. And as I'm dragging it, look at the end, how it changes. We want this to go all the way to 130. And look, that's where the fade out ends, right there. So that also visually lets you know that's the end of the song. But that also tells Pro Tools, even though there's stuff going on over here, I've got some breakpoints here. There might be some stuff after that somewhere. Yeah, there's another couple breakpoints here. It's telling Pro Tools to not go that far. It's only telling Pro Tools to go here. From here to here. It's basically setting an in and out point for you video editors. You set in and out point, then you export. The program knows to only export from in to out. That's what we've just done here. If you don't do that, you don't know what you're gonna get. And if you have only a specific thing selected by mistake, you're only gonna get that. So always make sure to highlight up here in your timeline the area you want to export or bounce, and that will ensure you that you will get exactly what you want in your bounce. Okay. So using File, Bounce, Mix, create a mixdown with these parameters. We're going to call it lesson 10, your initials mix. Okay. Bounce mix. So we're going to call this lesson 10 KT mix. He wants this as a WAV file. I agree. He wants this as interleaved. I agree. If we wanted an MP3 as well, we could, and it could give us 2 files, but we're not going to do that. At least I don't think we are. Mix source, the output path attached to your monitor's speakers. So everything has been going out to our speakers or out to our headphones. So whatever your output has been this whole time, that's what you want to make sure that your output is set at. Because if you say, like, have a bus, for example, then whatever is being mixed to that bus is what's going to bounce. So maybe you just have the sound effects mixed to bus 1 and 2. So if I had it set to that, then I would just get the sound effects. So you always want to make sure that what you've been hearing, whatever your output is, that is what you should have selected in your mix source. By default, it will choose a bit depth and sample rate that matches your session's bit depth and sample rate. So you should probably just leave that there. But if you did want to change it, you could. But in this case, we're just leaving it. Pad to frame boundary, import after bounce, file destination, offline checked. Okay. So by default, it will go to your bounced files folder in your session folder. Again, Pro Tools loves keeping things organized. It's just going to go to your bounced files folder. Thank goodness. You could choose a different location if you want. I would not suggest that because that would go against the Pro Tools organization logic. And we talked about this, offline. If it's online, it will export it in real time. So if it's a 2-minute song, it'll take 2 minutes to export it or bounce it. If it's offline, it will do it in just a few seconds. No difference in quality. The only difference is if you want to listen to it one more time as it's exporting, make sure it's perfect, make it an online bounce. But if you're sure that it's good to go and you're ready just to bounce it in just a few seconds, put it on offline. Then I think he says bounce it. And there it is. It's bouncing. It's a 5-minute song and it exported in less than 10 seconds. So let's see where that is and what it sounds like. There it is, lesson 10, bounced files. There it is. Yeah, there's my goofy mix. Oh, but it's there. Okay, last but not least, archiving. When you've finished mixing something, last thing you want is your computer to crash and have it all go away. So I always tell people archive when you're done and archive it onto a different hard drive. Archiving is literally making a backup, but it's making a backup of your session folder. So the way you do it is you go up to File, Save Copy In. So File, Save Copy In. And what this does is this lets you say, it's just like if you ever worked in Microsoft Word and you do a save as, you're basically making a copy and you're telling Word, as an example, you're telling Word, do you want to save it as an older version of Microsoft Word? So maybe someone on an older computer can open it up. That's basically what you're doing here. If you know that you're going to be giving it to someone who's got an older version of Pro Tools, you could save it as that version of Pro Tools. I don't really do this, and these are really, really old versions, so probably will never have to do this, but it does give you that option. So keep it on session latest so it saves in this current version of Pro Tools. Keep it at wave because that's the format you were working with. Sample rate, again, you could change it. Let's not do it though because we're just creating a copy of what we did. I don't want to have the backup be something different. So 44.1, 16-bit, interleaved, and let's see what else he says. Items to copy, audio files. Boom. Now, this other stuff is kind of, a lot of this is like 200 level stuff, but if you had video files in your video file folder, you could check that. If you had custom fades that you've made, you can check, let's see, session fade settings folder and root fade settings folder, things like that. But we're only dealing with audio files. This is just a music thing. So audio files. Hit OK. It's going to ask you where you want to do it. You choose like a different hard drive. Let's see here. Let's just put it on, I don't know. Let's just put it in here. No, I'm just going to put it on my desktop. As you can see, it's making a copy of everything. So let's go to my desktop. There it is. Copy of lesson 10, low roar KT. Double click on it. there is my PTX file and all of the audio files. So if I bring this session folder to another computer, it'll open right up, and I can be assured that everything I did in here has been backed up to that. So that completes this exercise. So what all you've got to do is, let's see here. I would like to see the automation that you did. So in your edit window, make sure that you are in volume mode for everything, or at least, yeah, be in volume mode for everything. And have it look, I want to see your automation. And take a screenshot of this. And ideally, too, if you can export a bounced mix. So for this, you'll turn in two things: the the screenshot and the wave file that you bounced as part of your bounce mix. Upload that to assignment page, and you are good to go.